So how you doing, Mike? Thank you so much for taking the time for coming on.
Doing well. Thank you for having me on. It's that time of year again, right, with the holidays, and the guys are off campus, so it's a time to regroup and then get ready for them to come back.
100%. Yeah, I'm sure you're getting ready for the season. Obviously, it's obviously a busy time of year. So thank you for taking the time. It's much appreciated. I'm a lifelong Northeastern fan. So being able to talk with you was quite an honor. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Let's do it.
All right, so let's just dive right in. So last season, obviously historic year, record-breaking year, winning 44 games, very impressive, obviously making it to the tournament, obviously having a great run of the CAA as well. What went into that whole entire season? I'm sure obviously it was a great run, long run. I'm sure analytics, everything you guys do there made it a record-breaking year from stealing bases to hitting home runs, all that. What was it like to be a part of that season last year?
Yeah, I think, two things really. I mean, it all started right away, like day one in the fall when we had our first team meeting. I think, you lay the foundation that very first day. You have all those new faces. You have your transfers, undergrad, grad now. We're in the transfer world, and then obviously your freshmen. So you have these new faces. You have all your returning players. We were coming off of what we felt like was definitely a disappointing year for all the returning guys. We made it to our conference championship the year before, but
Mm.
it was an uneven season, and we were disappointed with how it played out and how it went. So I think that first meeting, you just kind of acknowledge some of the things that went right, some of the things that went wrong, and then you start to lay the foundation right away. And then you just try to enjoy the process the whole way. So, we had a special group last year. We had a lot of talented players, a lot of hardworking players. Chemistry was extremely important to us. It always is, but I felt like last year we maybe even tried to take it to another level as players and as a coaching staff, and just putting that whole thing together. And then you can prepare all you want all the way through all the fall winter session here, and then the season gets there and you still don't know how things are going to go. And I think right away we just started playing some great baseball. We won our opening weekend series. We also had a really tough loss that weekend where we blew a lead in the ninth inning, and so we had all kinds of things happen right away. Win a series, lose a tough game, come together right away, and it just catapulted us to what was, really it was a historic season for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. You had some big wins over that stretch. Like you said, the beginning of the year, sweeping Indiana State, who had a great year last season, sweeping USF, beating Duke, even, who had another great year as well. You beat BC during the year. You even beat UConn. You guys had a lot of big wins last season, a lot of quadrant one wins. Those teams at a top 25, right around the top 25 all season. You guys had some big wins over that stretch, and a lot of them being on the road too, which is hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously being in the North, right? You're on the road the first 4 weeks. There's just no way around it. And so for us, just a little bit about our program and most Northern programs, right? Our first 2 weekends, we travel to whoever we're playing on a Thursday, fly down or bus or wherever, and then fly or bus home Sunday night. The guys get back, 1, 2 in the morning, and they have class in the mornings in the spring semester. So they're in class Monday morning, and then we go do it again the following weekend until and then our third and fourth weekends we go on
Yeah.
spring break, so we stay. But there's a lot of travel early in the season, as you mentioned. We're a lot of road games.
Hmm.
You can look at it one of two ways. For me, it's always been a positive hurdle to overcome. It builds team chemistry, which
So,
I've already talked about, because you're on the road together, and when
hmm.
there's nowhere to go, you only have each other. And so I think it's just an awesome way to build that team chemistry, that bond, traveling together, being together, because it also, on the road for the most part, never goes smoothly. There's always something that goes wrong with the travel, the delays, the hotel, whatever it may be. So you're always sharing those experiences, good and bad. And then you find out what type of team you are. You mentioned some great teams that we played. I think that's something we always try to do. We try to play a really challenging schedule early on to see who we are, to see see what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, how we can improve, see if we can get obviously big wins. We're not going into those games thinking we can't win. We're going into those games thinking, okay, where are we at? How ready are we to play early in the season? And then let's go out there and compete. So those early games are so important on the road for chemistry, for confidence. And if you have tough teams and mentally tough teams, which we try to have, if it doesn't go your way early in the season, okay, so what? You regroup, and then you respond as the season goes on.
Absolutely. Yeah. You play 60 games for a reason, right? So you're gonna have some tough games along the way, some games that fell apart in the ninth inning, and then some other games where you came back in the ninth inning and got a win. I mean, that's just how baseball
Yep.
goes, evens out over the whole course of the season, which last year, like you were saying, I mean, a great year, 44-16 record, top 25 the first time in the program history. So congratulations on that. Very
Thank you.
impressive. And then congratulations on being CAA Coach of the Year for the fourth time now, which
Thank
is
you. Yeah,
absolutely.
and I think those two things, the coach of the year is pretty cool because it's let's face it, it's a reflection of your assistant coaches, your staff, and your players. Obviously, it's really a reflection of the players. It's a team award. The head coach gets a not, recognized, but it's because obviously you're not getting recognized if you're 10-40. You got recognized because you had a good year because you have really talented players that work hard. So that's always a fun one because it signifies the type of season you have, the type of assistant coaches you have, and then being ranked, you touched upon that, like that. Yeah, looking back, like when you reflect on a season, that was pretty cool. It wasn't it wasn't our ultimate goal or anything like that, but to think that Northeastern baseball was nationally ranked last year, and just again to have the guys be recognized for all of their accomplishments on the field, and as an alum, it means even a little more. Like, holy cow, these guys, they really did it. They got us on the map here and got us ranked, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I really like that you shouted out the coaches, obviously, and the players, which you've coached a ton of talent now over the last 9 years, from Aaron Savali to Max Burt, Andrew Miziazik. I mean, I saw all those guys play at Northeastern, but the group of guys you have right now, a lot of being local guys, a lot of really blossoming as young, players. Last year, Kim Maldonado, as a freshman, had a great season. You got Harrison Feinberg transferred over from USC, still a young player as well, Mike Sirota. What's it like coaching all of this talent at Northeastern, which it's great that you're getting all the local kids to come to Northeastern, play in the Northeast, and stay local?
Yeah, I think that's been the progression of the program. I don't think we ever want to waver from our pillars, from our non-negotiables of who we think we are and who we want to be. And that's a hard-nosed blue collar team from the north that has a chip on their shoulder, that has a lot of obstacles to overcome. Like, as I mentioned, we have to really embrace that mentality and who we are as a program. And now you sprinkle in more and more talent, and all of a sudden you take that mentality, that mindset, that mantra of who we are, and you add this type of talent with the players you mentioned and many, many more. Now you're onto something special. I think we've always had that right mindset as a program. I think we've always had a tough program, tough players here, over 100 years of Northeastern baseball history. I think we've always been a hardworking team, right? Those are all things you can control. And now you add the talented players, the draft picks, and even the guys that obviously don't get drafted, they're incredibly talented. The ones that get drafted or make it to the big leagues, those are the ones that are easier to see and well-deserved, and I love it for them. But we have so many guys that are so talented and had tremendous college careers. And so the talent level has also increased over the years.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Over the years, I mean, you've been there now 9 years, and I'm sure recruiting has changed a lot over that, 9-year window, which I know you went back to Northeast as an assistant coach back in 2007, being the head coach back in like 2014 now. So what is it like now with the transfer portal, recruiting? How has that changed over the last 5 to 10 years with you being the head coach?
Well, it's definitely changed. I'm glad when I was hearing the numbers, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's all blending in now.
I'm a
But
big lifelong fan, so I got the ball down.
hey, you'll be my age someday. It all blends in after a while, but it's changed. Okay, so now what do? Do you just say, oh, I'm not changing, we're doing things the way we've always done them? Or do you try to change with the times and try to use the system to our advantage as best as possible? So I think it's great that the student athlete, has more flexibility and freedom now to be able to make decisions and changes and choices in their lives. I think that's fair, and that's the way it should be. Now, what do we do about that? How does a school like Northeastern fit in this world of transfers? And so I think what we really try to do first and foremost is just focus on our guys. Try to create an environment here that they want to be in and they want to stay in. Start with that, right? So again, I know I've said this a couple of times, but we don't have all the bells and whistles here at Northeastern. We don't have these state-of-the-art facilities and all these different things that maybe other programs have. But what do we have? We still have a strong culture. We win. It's a great academic institution right in downtown Boston. So you really try to create an environment and a culture within our team that guys want to stay. They want to be a part of it. And obviously enhanced by what the university has done and how amazing Northeastern is. So you take that full package, and then, you go year to year and see how this goes. And then when the season's over and you lose guys to the draft, you have to replace those players. If players do leave our program, okay, who left, what positions, how can we add to this? Now, our niche a little bit has been Division II, Division III transfers, maybe grad transfers. I think that's been a nice natural fit for us. And so we will continue to try to do our part in those areas if it calls for it. And players are interested in Northeastern. There's a lot of great talent in those levels. And I think Northeastern, again, is a great chance for them to go to school in Boston and play at a high level. But we'll also add it in, as you mentioned, some other Division I transfers from like a Feinberg from a Power 5, USC. This year we have Jack Bowery, who came in from Marist. Jimmy Sullivan came in from UMass Lowell. So we try to keep a formula too, where we have pretty good relationships with those other teams and their coaches, and we like their culture as well. So hopefully the fit is pretty natural when those guys come in.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you got a great D3 gem in Jordy Howard a couple of years ago, and he ended up being one of the relievers. So, and one of the best in the country. I mean, he was recognized one of the best relievers in all the country a couple of years ago. So, you guys have been great with recruiting, obviously, and recouping with your losing of talent to graduation, like Jeff Costello, Curry DiLoretto, two guys I was a big fan of watching them play. And you found guys just that came in and just took their spot and just stepped right in right away, like Maldonado, like Harrison Feinberg, getting Alex Lane, Tyler McGregor. I mean, that's just great recruiting that you guys can bring in talent, lose pieces, because every team in the country loses guys from a year-to-year basis.
Sure.
But you guys lost pieces and then just went right back to the same production. You had it even more with, younger guys as well, which is great to build a program from the bottom, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, let them all rise through the ranks. That's obviously big for developing chemistry. And then obviously trying to get to the bigger goal, making it to the tournament. Obviously guys now have the experience from last season. Now they're sophomores and obviously they obviously know what it takes to get there, which is huge. So that's obviously a big thing. The transfer portal has definitely helped you guys a ton.
Yeah, and I think the way to look at it too, it really is like the draft is your high school recruits, right? Like you got to always have high school recruits coming in, building your program for the now and the future. And you mentioned Maldonado and Cabral, two freshmen All-American last year. Like there you go. So your freshmen come in on a team like last year, and they have huge impacts right away. And then you had Tyler McGregor and Alex Lane on the older side, the transfer side, and then wow, you got all of a sudden you have a great mix. I hope I wish I could say it's going to always work out that. I don't know if it's like that, but I don't know if it's realistic, but those guys are like free agents almost, right? So you build them through the draft with your high school guys, you add the free agents with the transfers. And again, you try to do the best you can with the transfers. You identify the talent because there's already a body of work there. But then you also just got to make sure it's the right fit. And we've been blessed. Like you said, you mentioned Jordy Allard, awesome fit, like just a tremendous baseball player, better person, great fit. Griff Young, Tyler McGregor, like I mentioned, like these guys all just come in and have just been perfect fits for our culture as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. You found some gems there like Lane, McGregor. I mean, both those guys had huge seasons last year. You had 18 home runs from McGregor, 18 from Sirota, which I know obviously he wasn't a transfer, and then 16 as well from Lane. All three of those guys were top 5 in single season home runs in Northeastern's history. So it's just crazy. You can have guys that step in as freshmen, even if they're on the older side of the transfer portal, and have such a big impact on the offense. I mean, last year, 106 home runs, which ended up being the most in you guys' program history. The year before that, which there was still a lot of talent on that team in 2022, but there was only 27 home runs to show for, which I know home runs aren't everything, but to have the power you guys had last year, have 106 home runs, be top 20 just about in all the country, that was a big reason your offense obviously really took off last season. And that's not taken away from the 2022 team, which had a lot of talent as well. But it was just crazy to see how much talent and the power that you guys added in the portal.
Well, the home runs were crazy for me to see too.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. We shattered our single season home run record. I mean, I think by like 45 or something crazy. But again, those are conversations you're having as coaches behind the scenes as the year before is going, and we couldn't score runs with home runs. It was hard. Everything had to be multiple hit innings and stolen bases, which we had a ton of speed. And you mentioned two guys like Corey and Jeff were just huge on that piece. but
Definitely.
we just didn't have a lot of power. So you were always relying on 2-3 hit innings and well placed bunts and that's certainly a way to score, but you also want to be able to leave the park and score with one swing of the bat. So we talked a lot about that behind the scenes, like, okay, if we have an opportunity to address this in the transfer portal, our number one goal will be to try to add power. So Alex Lane does that immediately. We knew he had power bat and had power history, so he was someone we really wanted. Tyler McGregor had a ton of doubles, had I think 15 to 16 stolen bases at Columbia, along with a high average. Like, so we thought there was power there with some speed. And then Feinberg was another guy, like we had seen the BP, we have seen saw the summer ball, and like, all right, this guy has real power. He just needs to play. Even though he didn't have the numbers, we just thought, okay, he needs to play. And then you add them in, and as you mentioned, then all of a sudden Maldonado comes out of nowhere and hits the amount of home runs he hits, and then you get a healthy Sirota for the whole year.
Yeah.
And now you're like, holy cow! We went from, as you mentioned, under 30 home runs to over 100. It was pretty wild.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And even without the home runs being, there a couple years ago, 2022, the small ball baseball really did work for you guys, especially in those games against NC State, which I went to a good amount of games over the last couple of years. I'd walk, which I went to BC, but I'm a lifelong Northeastern fan. But I would walk from BC to go to all the games. And a couple of the games I'd sit with Corey DiLoretto's dad, Rob DiLoretto, who's been on the podcast before, and Mike Sirota's dad. And I was talking about that series against NC State. You guys were just fearless. Bunting, stealing bases. You were stealing like 2 or 3 in an inning,
Yeah.
points. So how important is it to be smart on the base path, stealing bases, bunting, whatever it may be, but also being aggressive since you don't want to run into a dead out?
Sure. So that there's a lot that goes into that too, right? So you mentioned analytics and we haven't talked much about that, but we certainly have our numbers and thresholds and benchmarks we want to be at. So we always want to be at stealing bases at a 75 to 80% clip. If you're getting thrown out more than that, now you start to run into outs. I think the numbers will prove that, right? So we're really trying to push that envelope and try to get around 80%. So that you start there. Then it's in practice every day with the assistant coaches, working on leads, working on jumps, working on speed, getting their steal start times every multiple times during the week on the stopwatch, so knowing where their numbers are actually at, what their threshold is as an individual, and then picking and choosing as a coach of giving them freedoms. Our guys have the green light. I don't really put the steal sign on. I think we practiced it so much that there's just so much trust from me to them, is when I the only thing I'll do is maybe take it off. Like, hey, we're not going to run here. We're down a few runs, or I don't like the matchup. The kid's 1-0 to the plate. It turns into a math equation, right? Where, hey, this kid's super quick to the plate. The catcher's got a really good arm. It doesn't match up with our times that we practice all the time. All right. So that, but maybe we can get the dirt ball read. We can go first to third. There's other ways that we can put pressure on the offense, on the defense, and on the pitching staff. So the stolen base has been in the program now for a while here. We've been up over 100 stolen bases many times. Last year, we were way up there again. The combination of speed and power last year was awesome, but being able to play small ball, being able to put pressure on opposing pitchers and opposing defenses is real, especially at the college level. So if we're not hitting that day and the home runs aren't falling, or maybe it's a cold, windy day, which happens in the Northeast, you better be able to find ways to score runs a different way, whether it be a slash, a hit and run, a safety squeeze, a stolen base, a delay, and then you need one big hit to win the game, and we'll take it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was a big formula, that 2022 season. You guys were still scoring some runs, just obviously not from the long ball, but it was still working the small ball, like in those games. I was NC State. I remember talking to DiLoretto's dad and Sirota's, and I was just saying, you guys just were fearless. You knew those guys. I mean, I'm sure the pitcher and catcher of NC State knew you guys probably were stealing a couple of those times since you guys were going so consistently, and you guys were still getting a great jump, getting a great read, which is hard to do, I'm sure. And that was a big reason you guys had, I think it was like 130 stolen bases last season, which was top 10 of the country. So
and
obviously the speed and power, like you were saying, that's just a great combo. So is it?
They do know you're right. They do know. The opposing team will know. It's in their scouting report. So you're thinking there's two ways to look at it. You're like, oh, they know we're going to run here. Okay. but then all of a sudden the pitcher speeds up. He gets out of his rhythm.
Yep.
The catcher rushes rushes his transfer, rushes his footwork. The
Yep.
infielder gets out of position because they know we're coming and we're coming and we're coming. We're going to do something here. We're going to run. We're going to hit and run. Something's going to be on, and they're on edge a little bit. So they're out of their game because maybe they don't play as many teams that play that way. So
Yeah.
we always talk about trying to be able to score runs two different ways, and 22 team, especially in the tournament, where we finally started to put it all together.
Definitely.
They were pretty special. We hit a couple home runs in that tournament. We had some big situational hits and some chaos offense, and it got us to the championship game.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a great run. And even though obviously you didn't get to really put everything together the whole season just because you had some injuries, guys along the way that, were struggling at one point. At the end of the season, though, things did come together, which was great. And you guys had a chance, even a CAA championship, which was obviously awesome to see. It's just a tough tournament just because you need, everyone to be healthy. It's obviously tough to play 3 games, 4 games in just such a short window. But you guys definitely, kept things close and were right there. So I was proud of that team, even though you felt the ultimate goal, but it was still a great team and a fun team to watch, which was
100%, 100%. Because that year there was a lot of pressure and hype on us. We were picked high, and as I mentioned, like we couldn't just find our way, and nothing came easy for that team, even more so. And they just kept kind of plugging and staying in it, and then having a huge last series of the year to get in the tournament.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're sitting there, we're in the championship game, and that was a testament to that group, like something they can always be proud of where, hey, this thing didn't go the way we drew it up. This thing didn't go the way we all thought it was going to. And we could have just said, hey, this isn't our year. It's not gonna, this is what it is. Or they kept fighting and pushing, and guys like Corey's playing hurt for the last, I don't know how many games it was, with a broken thumb. Broken thumb, torn ligament. Sirota gets hurt at the end of the year. Costello's banged up, and those guys get to the championship game. That's a group that can always look back and say, hey, we made it to the championship game, even though everything, didn't quite go as planned.
And from a fan's perspective, I was really proud of that team as well, which we knew the talent was there. It's just putting everything together, and the injuries, that must be the hardest thing during the course of the season. You have guys that could be producing and helping out the lineup, like Sirota, but then when he gets hurt, that's obviously a big loss in the lineup. And obviously defensively as well, DiLoretto was a great, defensive player. So it's obviously tough, I'm sure, with the injuries, but that team was gritty, obviously, and definitely showed, a lot of guts to make that run they did in the CAA tournament. So
yeah, it was a gritty. It's a good way to describe them. They were gritty, and so I think those guys that were on that team that came back. So that's always like what you do, like, the season ends and you're like, oh man, we're losing. Corey's done, and Jeff's done, and Teddy's done, and all the guys that were done that year, and you're like, oh man, we're losing all these guys. And then you take some time to just reflect and decompress as a coach and as players, and you're like, all right. And then after a few weeks, you're like, all right, we got to try to replace these guys. How do we do it?
I'm sure that's hard for sure. So you played at Northeastern, obviously being a local kid. What was it like playing at Northeastern and now even coming back as a coach? I'm sure it's great being able to come back to your alma mater and bring so much success to the whole program. I'm sure it's been a great run now over the last 9 years for you. What's it like being back now, being a local kid, and then even playing and going back?
Yeah, I mean, it is special. It's certainly a different place than when I was here as a student. I graduated in 96, and the university itself, first of all, has just blossomed and really exploded from a campus, setting, to when I was here, it was a commuter school, to now, all the housing and living on campus, and I'm more of a community campus feel, to the academic piece of how competitive, and over 95,000 applicants to Northeastern last year, which is wild. And so just to see how far it has come from my days here. But that's really what happened to me, where when I came back for an alumni event, and then there was a volunteer coaching spot open, I just sort of, fell back in love with Northeastern, because in a different way, it brought back a lot of great memories, but it also had a changed and evolved in such a tremendous way. And the trajectory of the university has been incredible. And so I always had a vision for that baseball program the same way, of like, well, why can't we try to match what the university is doing? Why can't we as a program continue to grow and feed off of what all the former players have done, all the former coaches have done, and why can't we take this thing to another level? So you start thinking about all the big vision, the dream, and like, oh, we can do this, and then, okay, how are we going to get there? And then you start, getting into the nitty gritty. So I love it. I'm so lucky to have this job. It's just, it's one of a few, even in New England, from a Division I perspective and across the country. And then to be able to coach at your alma mater and just have that extra sense of pride and connection to the program and the history, and then all the alums already built in. It's really, it's a special place, and I'm really lucky to be the head coach.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you were saying, I mean, over the years, the last 10, 15, 20 years, the whole school's changed. I mean, the academics are always great, but now it's a bigger school. Like you're saying, the dorms, the biggest sports programs as well. I mean, sports now have become even bigger at Northeast over the last, 10 to 15 years. It's a very definitely desired school, not just for baseball, but, all sports,
Yeah.
great. I remember doing a baseball prospect clinic back in 2018. I was impressed with the amount of kids you guys had. That you had so many people, so many kids coming from Connecticut, Rhode Island, kids coming across the country for that. I mean, you guys get everybody and everybody wants to play at Northeastern, which is obviously great to see. And it's a big testament to you and your staff and everything you guys have done over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Guys see everything you guys have done, getting guys into the league. And it's not just that, but it's also getting guys to play the best to the best of their ability. Everyone sees that. That's a reason everyone wants to come to Northeastern. So that's obviously a big testament to everything you've done for the program over the last 10 years.
Well, I appreciate that, but it's a lot of people doing a lot of work, and I think that was always been one of my goals is like, okay, to have these local kids in the New England area, like, look at Northeastern in a different way, not just from yeah, it looks like it's a great school and everything, but is that baseball program something a place where I can win? Is it a place where I can potentially play professionally and beyond? Do they get their players better and get them drafted? And obviously the degree speaks for itself. So, that was like goal number one for us, was to say, let's make sure in our backyard here in New England that baseball players that are Division I caliber want to consider Northeastern. We're not an afterthought anymore. We're right there at the top of their list as they navigate through the recruiting process. So that was absolutely goal number one. Let's try to be really good in our own backyard and get the local kids excited about Northeastern baseball. So again, guys that you mentioned, guys like DiLoretto, Costello, Allards, all those guys, they're all New England guys. And we sprinkle in some guys from New York, New Jersey, of course, and outside of the region, but I think it's really important to have those hope that the recruits and the high school coaches are having conversations that, hey, with Eastern baseball, those guys can play. They got it going on. That's a potentially great fit for whatever high school recruit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I did an internship with the sports medicine program back in 2018, and I was there in January and February. And I remember watching you guys practice in the Cabot Center. You guys are working on fundamentals, which is obviously a big part of the game of baseball. And one thing you guys do so well is you limit errors, obviously. You run the base paths well, you play smart baseball. So just seeing you guys all do that and watch that in practice, which you guys are only, inside. So it's tough to really do a lot inside, especially since it's cold around here, especially in January and February. But one thing you guys do well is the fundamentals, which is a big part of the game of baseball. And I'm looking back,
Sure.
I was looking at your numbers back when you were at Northeastern. Your strikeout to walk ratio was elite, which when I'm looking at this Northeastern team now, you have a lot of guys that are very heavy disciplined at the plate, which is obviously something you can preach to a lot of the guys that maybe struggle in high school, have a lot of power, but they, strike out a lot as well. One thing you did well, during your day at Northeastern was the strikeout to walk, ratio. And that is probably something you've preached to the guys, obviously being disciplined at the plate. What goes into your approach trying to teach the guys to be a little bit more disciplined at the plate, even if they can hit, 350-foot home runs every time they swing
Yeah.
the bat?
Well, I think it's all of that. What you mentioned, you touched upon it all. I think as a coach, it's one of the areas where you can have the biggest impact on the play on the field, right? You got to have talent. So, and we talked about that. We have talented players, but then can you instill some discipline in them and competitiveness in them to really play fundamental baseball, as you mentioned, like limit mistakes. So, one of the categories that we constantly talk about here, and I know a lot of programs do, but how well do you do it is free bases, right? How many free bases does each team have in a game? So what's a free base? Walking guys, errors, stolen bases, all those types of things where you either give the team a free base, your opponents, or they give them to you. And what we've been very good at is having them given to us, and we get a lot more free bases. The opponents walk us more than we walk them. We strike out less than they strike out. We make less errors than them. I think our defense has been really, really underrated and sort of it's not as cool as the home run and stolen bases or maybe the ERA. But if you look at our defensive numbers over the last, I don't know, 6-8 years, going from Max Burt and that crew to now, where our defense is really one of the best in the country, typically, and certainly in the upper 25%. And then you mix in the fact that we throw a lot of strikes. Our walks are usually really low from the pitching standpoint. And then offensively, yes, we talk all the time about, hey, can you get your walks plus hit by pitches to equal your total strikeouts? Mm-hmm. And that's something we talk about all the time. Discipline. Hey, command that strike zone as a pitcher, but also command it as a hitter. If you strike out 30 times this year, can you at least, walk 24 and get hit by 6 pitches and try to get a 1-to-1 ratio? Mm-hmm. If you can get a 1-to-1 ratio, that's incredible. Now it's really hard to do. But that's a goal of ours and our discipline, but we certainly want to strike out less than our opponent, walk more than our opponent, defend better than our opponent, have better defense, get thrown out less, limit all those free bases. And that's discipline. That's practice every day. Talk about it, video it, preach it, do it inside in Cabot, even though you're like, man, I wish we were outside, man. It's snowing today, but we're practicing. But can we practice our discipline? Can we practice the fundamentals so they'll carry over to the game? And then again, blessed to have players that buy into it and care about it.
Definitely. Yeah. Like you were saying with making less errors. I mean, your left side of the infield last year, Danny Crossan, Spencer Smith, 2 great gloves, obviously. Spencer Smith, I would say I've watched a lot of baseball my day. I've gone to a lot of, Northeastern games, BC games. I think Spencer Smith might be the best individual fielder I've seen play over my entire life watching in college baseball. He made some unreal plays, ranging to his right, ranging to his left, some crazy throws, some diving. I mean, he is just an all-around great talent defensively. And that's obviously a big loss, trying to fill in his shoes. But it's obviously great you had a guy like that, that could teach the younger guys that are stepping up now to get more, like Muzaki or, those guys that are going to get more innings now. It's obviously great to have a guy like Spencer Smith to teach those players. But yeah, tell me about Spencer Smith. I mean, he made some ridiculous plays at Freedom and Diamond over the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, defensive player of the year last year in conference, so well-deserved, awesome honor for him. I'm so happy for him to receive that. I coach third base from an offensive standpoint, and I can't tell you how many times either the third base umpire or the kid playing third for the other team would say, man, your shortstop, your kid's a great player. He's the best player, defensive player I've seen all year. And it's true. I mean, he just covered so much ground, could play on turf, could play on dirt. Transfer is as smooth as anybody I've seen from glove to hand to throw. Is just money all the time, really. And, fast runner, 6'5", 6'6" runner, so he can cover a lot of ground. But he's one of those guys, like, he's one of the reasons you coach. Like, not a lot of people believed in him coming out of high school. I would say this to him on a regular basis or often, like, hey, a lot of people didn't believe in you, but we did. Yeah. He didn't really have too many Division I looks or offers. And I even had people telling me, "Are you sure you can play at Division I?" And I was like, "Yeah, he can play." And then as a coach, you start to get a little chip on your shoulder for your own player. Like, so I was probably tougher on Spencer than maybe other guys, because I knew that people didn't necessarily believe in him, and he just proved them wrong. And not only was he a great defender, if you look at his numbers offensively, they were always the best in the tournament. And he always seemed to rise to the occasion late in the year. All tournament team, I think at least twice, maybe more.
I think so.
Yeah. And defensive player of the year. So he's one of those guys where as a coach, you just have a tremendous sense of pride because he worked for everything. He got so much stronger in the weight room. He got faster. His offense got better. And it all culminated into him winning, defensive player of the year and having his best season as a senior.
And like you said, I mean, you pointed out perfectly. He had some big hits, towards the end of the year, the last couple seasons. He had a couple 3-hit games, if I remember right. He was hot at the end of the season. That's when it matters most. That's when you want to be playing, your best, most crisp baseball offensively, defensively. And like you said, I mean, his glove stands out with all the teams you guys played against. I saw you guys play against UConn, BC, Elon, Hofstra, all these schools, at Northeastern. Then I went to a lot of BC games, and then playing a lot of ACC teams. And I would say, out of everyone I've seen, he was the best fielder I've seen in the last, I don't know, 5 years. I've gone to a lot of college baseball games. I'm confident saying he was the best fielder I've seen. Just some
Yeah,
ridiculous plays in the range,
we'll
like you
miss
said,
him. We'll
crazy.
miss him. We spent a good amount of time talking about the offense and how to replace those guys, but we're losing a defensive player of the year at shortstop. So we
Yeah.
certainly have some capable players here, and Mello and Goody and Beck and the guys that are here now. But we'll miss Spencer for sure.
100%. So I looked back to your days, in your playing days, and you made it to the, Cape Cod Baseball League, and you were an all-star in 1994. What did that mean to you, obviously, being a local kid playing in that league? And then also, what did it mean for your career making it, obviously, which a lot of guys get a lot of looks, by professional scouts playing in the Cape Cod Baseball League?
Yeah, that's definitely probably, top three best summers of my life, from just from baseball. And, I was fortunate enough to play 9 years professionally in the minor leagues. I was really a minor leaguer, and then obviously play some summer ball in college. But to be able to play down in the Cape Cod League as a local guy, I think every local kid that plays baseball around here in college baseball dreams of playing down in the Cape League. I know all our guys want to play there now too. So I just think it means more to us. I really believe that, to our local guys. I know it. I know it's a fact. So for me to play down there was a huge deal. I kind of got down there late. I was lucky to, late added. I started the season there, but I was really more like a temporary attempt when I first got there, and with Hyannis, and it was a perfect fit for me in Hyannis because at that time my aunt lived in Hyannis, so I lived with her. And then I obviously was lucky enough to stay all summer, and got the full and played there. And you mentioned, yeah, it was an all-star down there, led the league in home runs, which was a blast. And played in the all-star game, and did a home run derby against, Darren Erstad, and Todd Helton crushed me in the finals. And so I had some, big time players, certainly a lot better than I ever was. But just to be down there representing Northeastern, having that logo across my chest, I took that with a tremendous sense of pride for our program and for Coach McPhee and everybody here at Northeastern. Like, it really mattered to me. And, I wanted to show them what I could do. Hey, Northeastern's got good baseball even back then. So that mindset's kind of always been in me. But that was a really special summer, a lot of fun and a lot of great guys, and some talented players, and fun, and the fans are great, and just, just the whole experience playing in the best league in the summer and being close to home is just awesome.
Absolutely. And you showed your power at Northeastern, obviously being a top 10 home run hitter in Northeastern history. You showed the speed at Northeastern as well, being top 5 in triples. And then you go to the Cape League and you're doing it there on the biggest stage, hitting home runs, being an all-star. I mean, that's a tremendous honor, just even making it and then performing and putting up the numbers you did. I mean, that's a dream come true for a lot of kids. And I'm sure that definitely helped as well, you making it obviously professionally. You made it to the major leagues. You got to play with your brother as well on the Mets. What was that like, being on the same team as your brother in the majors? I mean, that's something you probably dreamed of your entire life, being on the same team as both of you guys being able to share the same stage. What was that like, making it and playing with them?
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Obviously, it was kind of like a blur still. Like, everything just, was happening so fast, and it was quick, and it was a short-lived MLB career for me. But it was to be able to have that experience. Him starting on the mound for that game, and me at first base, and just kind of just the whole thing for me, for him, for my family. It was something certainly I look back upon fondly, and just, have great memories for and from, and because he was always someone I looked up to. Really, the age difference, he's 7 years older than me, so it was always more like definitely big brother, but obviously someone I looked up to too, and kind of wanted to emulate and try to keep up with, and challenge myself to try to be as good as him. Obviously, it was an epic fail, but it was still fun along the way, just trying to, like, and I was always like the bat boy on his teams and the stick boy on the hockey teams, and just kind of tagging along, that little brother that always tagged along. And so to have that was special. So it was definitely something I'll never forget.
100%. Yeah, just making it to the major leagues, even if it's short-lived. I mean, the amount of baseball players that fall off from high school to college to the minors to the majors. I mean, there's a long, fall off from, A to Z to make it. And you made it, which is obviously just a a dream come true in its own. And then being able to play on the same diamond as him, I'm sure it's something he dreamed of as well growing up, being on the same team as his brother, making it, playing for the Mets. I mean, you're on the biggest stage in all of baseball playing on the same team. So that's obviously a dream come true in its own. And obviously you probably learned a lot from as well pitching. Has he ever talked to the pitchers at Northeastern, giving them tips, whatever it may be, mechanics, speed?
He has not in a while though. He's been MIA for the last couple of years now.
Yeah.
He's been busy. He obviously follows us and knows what's going on and watches our games, but I think it's more just general. Hey, great job, team looks good, that sort of stuff, or that
Yeah.
guy looks good, or that pitcher. But because he's not close enough, I don't know. He probably doesn't feel like, hey, I'm gonna offer him any advice here. I'm not close enough. But early on, and when I first started out, I leaned on him to come talk to the guys. And I swear like half the guys on our team now don't even know that I have a famous brother, I think. And the only reason that they do know is because of like, they're playing MLB The Show or something. And they're like, oh, is that,
Yeah.
wait, what? Like, so it's kind of funny
Yeah.
how like, yeah, we're getting older here, but he certainly is always welcome, but he lives down in Georgia, Florida. So he'll come to games if we're in that area, but not necessarily up this way to be with the guys, or like he's around like the holidays and the guys aren't here, so
Mhm.
its timing isn't always great.
I get that, but obviously you've learned a lot from him, just growing up, seeing him pitch, and then you were a hitter as well. So you guys got the two different sides of the game, him pitching, obviously, you hitting. What do you look for? Which I'm sure you've learned a lot from him. What do you look for in a pitcher? Is it speed, high leverage, control, a big situation? What do you look for? What's the main thing you go for when looking for a pitcher? Since Northeastern, I mean, they've had some great pitchers over the last few years. Last year you had a 3.75 team ERA, which was, I think, third best in all college baseball. And you've had a lot
Yeah.
of guys get drafted that were pitchers as well. So what's the main thing you look for when looking for pitching talent?
I probably look for a lot of things that he did. I look for like, multi-sport athletes if it's possible, which
Mhm.
which we were growing up. So we, try to find that, but that's not definite, not foolproof, but you try to find maybe a multi-sport athlete. I think, you to say velocity doesn't matter is a lie.
Mhm.
So you have to see a velocity component there that you feel like, okay, this is someone that, can pitch for us. But then you got to factor in all the other stuff. How is his command, right? Like that's you have to be able to throw strikes. I know that sounds so trivial and so simple, and no kidding, coach. Great advice, right? But it's true. Like guys, it's hard to take a kid that throws hard and it's all over the place and the misses are every, wild, versus okay, someone that throws hard, but the misses are small. He's just off the edge. He's close. Okay, that it's hard to reel someone in. So
Mhm.
velocity, command, a secondary pitch, certainly, spin, typically a breaking ball or slider. We feel good about teaching changeups, and compete level. Like just like how competitive is this kid? If maybe his velocity isn't 88, 90 in high school, maybe he's 84 to 86, but he's got a really good frame and he's competitive as all heck. And then you're like, all right, this kid's he's gonna get in the weight room. He's gonna get stronger physically. He's gonna gain weight. He's gonna do Coach Cobb's throwing program and all of our arm care, and he's
Mhm.
just gonna physically grow because he's so competitive and won't take no for an answer. And that you believe that velocity will jump. So it's just those combination of things, velocity, command, physicality, delivery, and then the most important potentially is just the compete level. How bad do they want it?
Yeah, control is definitely huge. Like you were saying, you have to throw strikes. And then the competition level, I never really thought about that, but that's obviously a big thing. You want a kid that has that, chip on his shoulder. He wants to obviously get better and better, which a lot of kids in high school that throw, let's say 90, they might just think they can throw 90 past everybody they play against. But when you guys are playing, top programs in the country all season long for 60 games, a lot of guys can hit 90-mile-an-hour fastball. So it's about like, like you're saying, breaking balls, spin rate, which Coach Cobb's been great with that. If you look at, the trajectory of pitches over the last 10 years you guys have had, just guys continue to get better. Kyle Murphy was a guy which I first started going to games probably, I don't know, 2015, 2016, when I consistently went to a lot of games and seeing him pitch, Andrew Miziazik. And then you come all the way to now when you're seeing Avon Cabral, Wyatt Scotty. The spin rate on all of these guys has been tremendously great. It just continues to get better and better. So, like you're saying, you got to find those guys that have the talent and then work with them, obviously, and work on that secondary. Obviously the third pitch as well is a big thing, which Wyatt Scotty, I mean, he has 4 or 5, 6 pitches he can probably throw in his arsenal with all the breaking balls he can throw. So that's obviously a big thing. And one guy that I was a big fan of, which I already mentioned him, was Andrew Miziazik. Just seeing him pitch, he obviously battled some injuries during his time at Northeastern, but he's obviously got a guy that had the talent, had the control, ended up being a great pitcher in the Cape Cod Baseball League. Speak about him a little bit, and obviously his work ethic, going through the injuries he's gone through, and now he's even hurt, I think, in the minor leagues as well. But we obviously know the adversity he's faced, and he can obviously get better and get back from that.
Yeah, he's awesome. He is such a great kid, great person, great pitcher. So there's a perfect example. There's a lefty out of high school that we recruit. We really liked his slider out of high school. He had a really good slider, but his velocity was as 82, 83, so we're like, hey, that secondary pitch, that slider's legit. Like we like this kid. He's got a great frame, and so we got him. Okay, great. So really excited to have him. And I remember this like it was yesterday. He throws his first bullpen in Cabot in the fall, and I'm looking, going, wow, that doesn't look 82, 83. And I had, you don't see the guys a lot during their high school year because we're playing. So it's just
Yeah,
hard to, follow them or see. You can't get out there and physically see them.
definitely.
So then it's first bullpen, so we get the gun out, and he's like 88 to 90, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. All right, now we got something. Like this is awesome. And
Yeah.
this is the kid, like you're like, oh man, he had the secondary pitch, he threw strikes, had the frame, and he's already made a jump before he even got here. And so what a career he had. I think he's our all-time saves leader, a single
Yes.
season saves leader. I
Yes.
should know that, but there's so many stats, but
Definitely.
reliable, tough, competitive, um, great tempo, like gets the ball, he's throwing the thing under 10 seconds. There's no falling asleep when he's pitching.
Mhm.
He is on that rubber, go, go, go. He was always in attack mode and on the offense on the mound. You look up and he's staring at you, ready to go. So
Yeah.
what a career he had. Absolutely deserved to be drafted. I thought should have went even higher.
Yeah.
And before he gets hurt here recently and with the Guardians, he's knocking on the door of the big leagues here.
Was
The
this
year
close?
he
He's up
had,
there.
yeah, that year he had before he got hurt. You talk about strikeout to walks and numbers. His numbers were off the charts. I thought he had an outside chance of getting called up that September.
Mhm.
And so he has, he's coming back from an injury now, but he's still going to be knocking on that door to get to the big leagues. But had a huge legacy here at Northeastern pitching for us. Hopefully he gets back healthy and he gets that opportunity in the big leagues. But a great person and great pitcher for us.
Definitely. He'll get another shot for sure. Obviously, the injury was tough, but like we were saying, he's battled a lot over his career and has gotten even better. So I'm sure with that chip on his shoulder now, that adversities he's had to face is only going to make him stronger. And like you mentioned, him being an MLB draft pick, he should have went even higher. I agree with you. I thought that when I was watching him play, I thought he was first round talent, which it's really hard. Scouts will probably see things differently from one team scout to another. They probably, grade guys differently where they think they're at. But when you're looking at this Northeastern team coming into this year, there's obviously a lot of buzz going around about Mike Sirota being a first round pick in the MLB draft. What makes Mike so different? Which I obviously know he's a 5'2" player, but what makes him different?
Yeah, 5'2" player. So I won't talk about that because we know that. What
Yeah.
makes him different is his internal drive. He is perfectionist. He wants to be the best. He wants to do everything well. He comes to practice every day with a plan. It's not just, let me get this practice over with. It's like he'll let you know if he has a bad practice. His body language won't be as great. He'll be frustrated because he takes every practice seriously and every swing. And so everything he does, he wants to be the best on the field. So he has a chip on his shoulder as well. I think he got slighted in some things last year and some benefits he probably should have been given from a summer ball and team standpoint. I won't go
Definitely.
into. So
Mhm.
he's got a chip on his shoulder. He works extremely hard. He's motivated, disciplined. He's a baseball guy. He watches a lot of baseball, watches a lot of video. Very, very smart. Baseball, he can find pitchers, tipping pitches. He knows what's going on. He knows the situations. He knows how to think the game through, knows his swing. He just does all of those things along with someone that's really talented. His mental game and what it means to him. And obviously he's extremely loyal to me, to Northeastern, which is a trait I think that in today's athletics is something that he should be praised for tremendously. And I think that's all going to carry him a long way to having a great season this year and a great career beyond Northeastern.
100%. Like you were saying, I mean, there's a lot that goes into a player being the player they are. Talent, obviously drive, and just watching him play, you could see he has five tools. I went to a game, I think it was March of 2022, so a couple years ago now, his freshman year, and that game against Bryant, he was stealing bases, making some great plays in the outfield, getting on base with, I mean, he had some hits in that game as well, had some good contact, but just great plate discipline. And that's tough as a freshman. Guys that jump from high school to being a freshman in college baseball. I mean, a lot of guys just want to swing away. And one thing he did was plate discipline. And this past season, not only was he great at the plate discipline wise, but the power was just off the charts. 18 home runs, which was tied for third most in a single season in Northeastern history. So what went into that jump from, 4 home runs his freshman year, obviously battling injuries, to 18 home runs his sophomore year?
A couple things. Number one, you're right. His plate discipline is elite. It is elite. It is, and I don't want to like say too much, but it's just like it's big league elite. Like he knows the strike zone better than anyone I've coached. He knows the strike zone better than pretty much every umpire, and he'll get frustrated from time to time. And I'm like, Mike, you're probably right, but you gotta deal with it a little. But so that's elite. So that he just continues to refine that. But I think strength. Certainly, I know that sounds simple, but you just mature. I mean, he goes from an 18-year-old to a 21-year-old. Like that's just natural. He's physically packed on the weight, put the work in the weight room, bought into his body and strength. And he might not necessarily look at times, and maybe you'll find someone that's bigger or more physical. But when you watch him in the weight room and see how much stronger and explosive he is, all his movements are very, very fluid and strong and powerful. So he's really gained that piece to his game. And I think he knows when to go take a chance for a home run, not swing for one, but he knows the counts. He knows what pitchers are trying to do to him. And he knows when the time is right. And he knows when there's 2 strikes that he is going to shorten his swing and put a ball in play and use his speed. And if it goes out, it goes out. And he also knows when he's in hitter's counts, or if he knows a pitch is coming, he's going to try to put a swing on it that's going to do damage. And so, and I think all of those things, the natural evolution of a hitter has taken place for him. And with the strike discipline, the strength, the bat speed, and understanding the game and when to really, turn on a baseball, or he really hits the ball well in center field and right field. He's really taken all of that to another level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does this season, obviously, and he's getting even better from freshman year to sophomore year to junior year, which is great. And one thing you just mentioned was situational hitting, obviously, shorten up your swing in certain situations. One guy that did great with that this past season was Danny Crossan. I mean, it was just ridiculous, with 2 strike counts, and he reached base in all 59 games, I'm pretty sure, which is just ridiculous. Or was it 60 games, whatever it was? Reached base safely in every game he played in the season. And I have it written here, 84 hits, which is the most in a single season in Northeastern history. What went into his big bounce back season, which I know a couple seasons ago, had a couple tough stretches at the plate. And then last year really just took off as a grad student.
Yeah, I mean, perfect. Like another example for that 22 season, right? He gets hit by a pitch a week before the season is about to start at one of our inner squads, ends up having surgery, out, breaks his hand there, and misses the start of the season. Mm-hmm. So then he comes back. Our team's Corey's hurt. There's all this stuff going on. I got to put Crossan over at first. When he comes back, he's not quite 100%. He's playing a different position. The whole thing was off for him, and from the head coach putting him in the wrong position on down. And so I knew in my heart of hearts he was going to have a bounce back the year last year. I didn't have any question about it. And he is a incredible worker, very disciplined as well. Just another guy that kind of won't take no for an answer. Just work. If you walk by the weight room, he was in there. If you heard tinging in the cage, well, there's a really good chance that Crossan and Sirota or another guy, they were in the cage hitting when it was their free time. So just put all the work in, and then just a very steady presence and personality from Danny. Just never got too high, never got too low, didn't get down on himself, didn't doubt himself, didn't think he was the greatest, just kept working every day. And he was the same kid every day. That's really hard to do in this sport because there's so much up and down, and he used that to his advantage. So what an awesome year he had last year. Just, I mean, another guy that's going to be, impossible to replace, but what a year he had. And, again, saved his best for last. It was his best season by far, and it culminated in a ton of wins for us. And he was a major reason for that. Just a steady presence up and down that lineup and in the locker room. And he's one of those guys, again, you're just really happy for because he worked for everything he got.
Definitely. And I'm sure it's great having some of those guys come back for their extra season, like Jeff Costello a couple years ago, Teddy Baudet, and then obviously Danny Cross and Spencer Smith. Having those guys come back and extra your leadership, having another guy that, can talk to the younger guys, since you had a lot of, younger guys come in, freshmen, sophomores coming in the last couple of years. Having a guy that's a fifth year, sixth year that can talk to those guys and, tell them what Northeastern's all about is obviously great and big for the program. So Danny's definitely going to be a big loss, especially defensively as well. He was a great player all around, just like Spencer Smith. I mean, that whole left side last year was just a brick wall. And so looking forward to this season, which this is my last question, don't want to hold you too long, but you're opening up this season with Arizona, 3-game series. Then you get to go play the Red Sox like you guys do every single year, which I know that's probably a little bit of a nerve-wracking game for guys that, grew up Red Sox fans. What's your message to the team on that day?
Message is act like a big leaguer. Literally just say, hey, just act like a big leaguer today. Let's, have that swag, walk around confident, not a kind of like not a care in the world. Hey, I made it to the big leagues. The game record wise doesn't matter. It doesn't count. The stats don't count. It's really just trying to go out there and have some fun. And it is, some guys get caught up and it's a little bit stressful for them. You always have to put the pitchers out there, and you look up and they're looking up and they're seeing from Poppy to Pedroia to Manny to now Devers and Yoshida and all these guys. And you're like, okay, I always feel for our pitchers just a little more than the hitters, because the hitters are just, hey, they're going to face some dude probably throwing 95 and it is what it is. But the pitchers are looking up going, oh my God, this is so-and-so and so-and-so. But you just try to have the most fun. It's one of the best alumni events of the year for the university. So we have a great contingent of alums there. There's a great get together prior to the game and barbecue and tent and everything. And I'll go over there with our leaders and say a few words and meet our alums. So that's great. Take a BP on JetBlue Park field, and and there's a good crowd there, and we're always the crowd favorite. They're rooting for us usually as the underdog. So it's a special day. It's an awesome day. You just try to tell them to have as much fun as possible with it. Don't get stressed over it, and be a big leaguer for a day.
Definitely. And you guys gave them a game last season. It was only 5-3. I mean, you guys were in the game. You guys are right there. Awesome. And even, I think it was probably 2015, 2016, somewhere around then, but Savali had David Ortiz, if I remember right, Haley Ramirez swinging and missing, breaking balls, which was great. So it's obviously a good day to get some looks on you as well from, Red Sox scouts. It'd be awesome, so it's a great day for alumni, like you said too. I didn't know that you guys had a whole, thing before the game. That's awesome. That's great. You guys bring everyone together down there.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Absolutely. So my last question is this. So what game are you looking forward to most this season? Which it's probably hard to pick just an opponent, but are you looking forward to most of the conference games, the out of conference? What would you say? Is it the Red Sox game?
I'm looking forward to the championship game in conference, if we can get to that one.
Yeah.
That's the coach speak in me, but which games? I mean, the conference games are always, they're always a little more fun. There's a little more pressure. There's a little more stress. There's a little less sleep. So those games, I know that doesn't sound like more fun, but it is. It's what the guys live for, right? Like the Arizona weekend will be really tough, to play those guys out there right away. They're a regional team from last year. They're loaded. So, that'll be a huge challenge right away. Then you go to the Red Sox, as you mentioned. Then we're playing the University of Minnesota, who beat us a couple of years ago. So they'll be really tough. We have Georgia Tech midweek. That'll be fun. We haven't played those guys. Last time I think we played them, Adam Ottavino pitched against them and threw an absolute gem. So that'll be fun. Mercer, and I haven't been there, so that's a new place to take the team. So that'll be a great experience. Old Dominion, we're close with their coaching staff. We've been there. They used to be in our conference. They were in a super regional a couple of years ago, so that'll be a huge challenge. So that out of conference schedule has a little bit of everything. So I'm looking forward to that. But then, when you get in conference, that's when the rivalries start. That's when it gets a little more intense, and that's what you practice for and play for. So, and the conference is loaded this year. I mean, we had Campbell, Wilmington's obviously always awesome. Charleston, Elon, Hofstra, Stony Brook, like top to bottom, it's just such a sneaky, tough conference that, I could envision 2 or 3 teams in a regional possibly. And I think that's just incredible for our conference.
Definitely. Yeah. Gets you guys a lot of looks, which is great. And you guys having the year you guys did last season, now jumping to this year, everyone's looking at the conference even more considering you guys were top 25 last year. So you guys have done great for the CAA, and I'm excited to see what you guys do this season. I don't want to hold you too much longer, Mike, but thank you so much for taking the time. This is a true honor being a lifelong Northeastern fan like I've been. Being able to talk Northeastern baseball with you is a true honor. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me on. I hope I see you at a game in person this spring.
I will be there. No worries at all. I'll let you know the game I'm
All
at. For
right.
sure.
Make sure
Thank
you
you,
say
Mike. Have a
hello.
good one. Happy
All
holidays.
right. Thanks, Joey. All right. Same
Bye-bye.
to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.